Hello, welcome back to the Sleepy Bible Odyssey. We are arriving now at the fourth session of the I Am statements of Jesus. We have walked together through the bread of life, the one who meets the hunger beneath every other hunger and satisfies it completely. Through the light of the world, the gentle illumination that comes to the disoriented heart and slowly clears the way. Through the gate, the safe opening of the sheepfold, where the shepherd lays down his own body so we can come in and go out and find pasture. The last session carried us into the tender world of the shepherd and the sheep. Tonight we remain there, because Jesus is not finished speaking to your heart in this beautiful language. I am the good shepherd. The word good here is kalos in the Greek. It doesn't simply mean morally good. It means beautiful, genuine, noble, the real thing all the way through. The kalos shepherd is the shepherd whose presence, whose heart, and whose actions are perfectly one. He is not playing a role. He is not filling a position. He is authentically and completely the shepherd, down to the very last breath. Jesus draws a quiet, honest contrast. On one side stands the good shepherd, on the other, the hired hand. The hired hand is not a thief. We met the thief earlier. The hired hand has a legitimate place, but his relationship to the sheep is only transactional. He does the work when it is safe and easy, but when the wolf appears, when the cost grows too high, he runs. He runs because the sheep are not his own. That sentence carries such weight. The hired hand leaves because there is no true belonging. The sheep are simply a job to him. When presence becomes dangerous, the job is no longer worth it. But the good shepherd does not run. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep, not because the cost-benefit adds up, not because it makes logical sense. He lays down his life because these sheep belong to him, because the knowing between shepherd and sheep runs so deep, so personal, so full of love, that it cannot be abandoned, even when the wolf comes. Tonight's story is the one Jesus told right before this, the parable that breathes life into every word, the shepherd who leaves the 99 to go looking for the one. And let's spend this hour with the good shepherd, the one who knows you by name, who comes looking when you are missing, and who will never run from you. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. John 10:11-13. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. John 10:14-15. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Luke 15:4-5. I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. Luke 15:7. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. John 10:3-4. I am the Good Shepherd. To understand the full weight of this claim, it helps to understand the specific word Jesus chose. The Greek word is kalos, beautiful, genuine, the real thing as opposed to the substitute. The kalos shepherd is the authentic shepherd, the one in whom the role and the reality are identical, not performing the shepherd's function while belonging elsewhere, not occupying the shepherd's position while caring for something other than the sheep, authentically, completely, all the way through the shepherd. And then the proof of the authenticity. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The laying down is not incidental to the goodness, it is the definition of it. The kalos shepherd is identified by the willingness to pay the ultimate cost, the cost that the hired hand is not willing to pay, the cost that distinguishes the one who belongs to the sheep from the one who is merely employed by them. The laying down is the evidence that the relationship is not transactional. The hired hand cares nothing for the sheep. This phrase is the sharpest in the contrast. The hired hand does not hate the sheep. He is not the thief. He is not there to steal and kill and destroy. He simply cares nothing for them in the specific sense of the thing that would make him stay when the wolf comes. The sheep are the means of the employment. When the employment becomes the means of the danger, the employment is no longer worth the staying. The Good Shepherd's relationship with the sheep is different at the root. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. The knowing is the root. The knowing is mutual, not the shepherd's unilateral awareness of the flock, but the reciprocal, relational, completely personal knowing that runs in both directions. The shepherd knows the sheep know the shepherd. The knowledge is not the information about, it is the knowing of the person, the being known by the person, the specific, intimate, completely irreducible relationship between the shepherd and the sheep, whose name he knows and whose voice he recognizes and whose absence he notices. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. The knowing between the shepherd and the sheep is patterned on the knowing between the Son and the Father. The most intimate knowing available in the universe, the knowing that is the inner life of the Trinity, is the model for the knowing that Jesus has with the sheep. This is the knowing that does not run when the wolf comes. This is the knowing that lays down the life. The Good Shepherd statement addresses a specific, deep, completely real fear. The fear of being one of many. The person who wonders, in the private, rarely spoken aloud way, that this particular fear is carried, whether they are known individually or whether they are simply part of the crowd. Whether the God who manages the universe has any specific attention to give to the one person lying awake in one room in one city on one night. Whether the knowing is general or particular. Whether the care is for the flock or for this specific sheep. The Good Shepherd statement answers this fear with the most specific, personal, completely individual claim Jesus makes in the entire Gospel of John. I know my sheep, not the flock. The sheep, plural, but individually, each one. The knowing is the knowing of the specific animal by the specific shepherd who has spent enough time with the flock that the individual is distinguishable from the mass. The shepherd who knows the names, who recognizes the particular gait of the one who walks differently, who notices when one is missing from the count at the end of the day. He calls his own sheep by name, the most individual form of the address, the name that belongs to one person and no other. The calling by name is the declaration. I know which one you are. I know the difference between you and every other sheep in the fold. I know your particular history, your particular habits, your particular way of moving through the pasture. And the parable makes the consequence of the knowing concrete. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, does he not leave the 99 and go after the one that is lost? The 99 and the one. The specific mathematics of the Good Shepherd's attention. The 99 are present, accounted for, safe in the fold. The one is missing. And the shepherd leaves the 99, not abandons them, leaves them in the open country in the care of the others, and goes after the one specific, particular, completely individual sheep whose absence was noticed because the shepherd knew the count and knows the names and does not average the 99's safety against the one's lostness. One missing is one too many. This is the specific, personal, completely individual attention of the Good Shepherd, and it is for you tonight. The tradition that stands behind the Good Shepherd statement is one of the oldest and richest in the Hebrew Scriptures. The shepherd was the image of the king. In the ancient Near East, the shepherd was the standard metaphor for the responsible ruler, the one who leads, protects, and provides for those in his care. The kings of Israel were evaluated by this standard. David is introduced in the Scriptures as the shepherd boy called from the fields to be anointed, and the connection is not merely biographical. David the shepherd becomes David the king because the qualities of the Good Shepherd are the qualities of the good king. He knows the flock, he defends the flock, he goes after the lost, and the kings of Israel failed the standard. Ezekiel 34, which we touched on in the gate session, is the prophetic indictment of the royal shepherds who abandoned the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured, or brought back the strays, or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally. The hired hand dynamic. The occupying of the shepherd's position without the shepherd's care. And the promise that follows the indictment is the promise that the Good Shepherd statement fulfills. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Yahweh. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak. I will shepherd the flock with justice, I myself. The Yahweh who made the promise in Ezekiel 34 is the one who stands in the temple courts in John 10 and says, I am the Good Shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep. I know my sheep. The myself of Ezekiel's promise is the I am of John's Gospel, the same divine presence arriving in person to do what the false shepherds of Israel could not and would not do. Psalm 23 is the personal experience of the Good Shepherd's care. The Lord is my shepherd, not a shepherd, my shepherd. The psalm is the individual's testimony to the specific, personal, completely particular care of the one who tends this specific sheep. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me along right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. The darkest valley. The Good Shepherd does not guarantee the avoidance of the darkest valley. He guarantees the presence in it, the rod and the staff as comfort, the tools of the shepherd's trade, the instruments of guidance and protection that the shepherd carries into the valley with the sheep. The shepherd does not send the sheep through the valley alone. The shepherd walks ahead. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The comfort of the shepherd's presence is specific, embodied, and completely real. The sheep in the darkest valley is not comforted by the theological proposition that a good shepherd exists. The sheep is comforted by the rod and the staff of the shepherd who is walking through the valley with them. The presence, the accompaniment, the good shepherd who laid down his life and who walks ahead. The Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling. This is how the parable begins, not with the sheep or the shepherd, but with the audience. The tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around Jesus to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." The Good Shepherd parable is told into the specific, charged, completely real tension of the moment. The people who had been told by the religious establishment that they were too far outside to be gathered are gathering around Jesus. The people who had been told that their lostness was their own fault and the consequence of their own choices are coming to hear. And the people who have appointed themselves the guardians of who gets to be inside are grumbling at the gathering. And Jesus tells 3 parables in a row: the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, all with the same structure. Something of value is lost. Everything is dropped to search for it. It is found. There is rejoicing. The first parable is the sheep. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? Until he finds it. The searching is not time-limited or distance-limited. The shepherd does not search for the lost sheep until the searching becomes inconvenient. He searches until he finds it. The finding is the goal, and the searching continues until the goal is achieved. The lost sheep does not have a finite window of availability for rescue. The shepherd searches until the sheep is found, and when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. On his shoulders, not driven back to the fold, carried. The sheep that has been lost and found is not sent back under its own power. It is placed on the shepherd's shoulders and carried. The shepherd who spent the energy of the searching now spends the energy of the carrying. The lost sheep does not contribute to its own return. It is found, it is placed on the shoulders, it is carried home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. Rejoice with me." The shepherd does not return quietly. He calls the community. He announces the finding. He makes the return of the one lost sheep the occasion for a party. The same structure as the prodigal son's return, the same logic. What was lost has been found, and the finding is worth celebrating. I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. More rejoicing over the one. This is the sentence the Pharisees cannot receive. The 99 who stayed, who maintained the position, who kept the rules, who did not go astray, are not the occasion for the heavenly rejoicing. The one who was lost and is found is. The mathematics of the divine attention are not the mathematics the religious establishment expects. The Pharisees are grumbling about the gathering of the tax collectors and sinners. Heaven is rejoicing at it. The Good Shepherd left the 99 to find the one. The 99 are the Pharisees' concern. The one is the shepherd's. The Good Shepherd statement offers the person lying awake tonight something very specific. The experience of being the one. Not the 99, the one. The specific, individual, completely particular sheep whose absence is noticed, whose name is called, whose return is celebrated with the calling of the friends and the neighbors and the rejoicing that echoes as far as heaven. This is what it means to be known by the Good Shepherd. The 99 are safe. The 99 are fine. The 99 are in the open country, and the shepherd has left them there because the 99 do not require the searching. The 99 are the people who are present, accounted for, functioning correctly. The 99 are the people whose lives are proceeding on schedule. The one is the person who is lost. Lost in whatever the specific particular form of the lostness takes in this life. The relationship that has ended and left the person without the orientation that the relationship provided. The faith that has thinned to the point where it no longer functions as the ground it was. The season of the life that has the quality of the wandered away from the flock, far from where the safety was, in the open country, without quite knowing how the distance from the fold became this large. And the shepherd leaves the 99 and comes. He comes looking specifically, until he finds. And when he finds, the found sheep does not walk back. The found sheep is carried on the shoulders. The shepherd who has been searching bears the weight of the return. The sheep that is found contributes nothing to its own homecoming except its presence on the shepherd's shoulders. This is what the grace of the Good Shepherd looks like in practice. The found sheep does not have to find its way back. It has to be found. And the being found is not contingent on the sheep's effort or the sheep's worthiness or the sheep's ability to navigate the return route. It is contingent entirely on the shepherd's searching and the shepherd's finding and the shepherd's carrying. And the shoulders do not tire. The shepherd who has spent everything searching does not set the sheep down halfway home because the carrying has become heavy. The same commitment that produced the leaving of the 99 and the searching until found produces the carrying all the way home. The sheep is carried from the open country to the fold, from the lostness to the belonging, from the absence to the rejoicing. The whole distance, on the shoulders that do not tire. The rejoicing is for you. The calling of the friends and neighbors, that there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner, is for the person who was lost and is found. Not for the person who did everything right, for the person who wandered, for the person who got far from the fold and who could not find the way back. For the person lying awake tonight in the open country, in the dark, uncertain of the direction of home, the shepherd is already searching, the shoulders are ready, and the rejoicing is already being prepared. The psychological research on being known, belonging, and the experience of mattering as an individual speaks directly to what the Good Shepherd statement offers. The first concept is the distinction between being known and being recognized. The social psychologist William Swan and colleagues have studied what they call self-verification, the human need to be known accurately by others, to have the self seen as it actually is rather than as others assume it to be. The research consistently shows that people have a powerful drive not merely to be liked or approved of, but to be genuinely known, to have another person's understanding of them match their own experience of themselves. The distinction between being known and being recognized is significant. Recognition is the surface awareness, the face identified in the crowd, the name matched to the role, the contribution noted in the meeting. Recognition is real and it matters, but it is not the same as being known. Being known is the experience of the person who has been seen accurately, deeply, across time, whose history is understood, whose complexity is received, whose specific and particular selfhood is held by another person with the specific and particular attention that the selfhood deserves. He calls his own sheep by name. The calling by name is the knowledge, not the recognition. The shepherd who calls by name is the shepherd who has been with the flock long enough to have learned the individual in the particular, not the sheep in the category, but this sheep with this name and this history and this way of moving through the pasture. The I know my sheep is the self-verification that every person most deeply needs and that the Good Shepherd uniquely provides. The practical application, the specific experience of being known by the Good Shepherd, received accurately, held particularly, called by name, is available in the practice of the prayer that comes as the self rather than the performance. The prayer that names the actual condition, the actual lostness, the actual distance from the fold, without the managed presentation of the person who is not sure the shepherd wants the real version. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep whose actual condition is what he came for. The second concept is the neuroscience of attunement. The developmental neuroscientist Daniel Stern and colleagues identified the capacity he called attunement, the specific interpersonal process through which one person receives and reflects back the emotional state of another, communicating that the emotional experience has been received and recognized. The attuned caregiver does not simply respond to the infant's behavior. They match the quality of the inner state that the behavior expresses. The match is not imitation. It is the receiving of the experience itself. The research on attunement consistently shows that the experience of being attuned to is one of the most fundamental human needs and one of the most powerful contributors to well-being, resilience, and the capacity for genuine relationship. The person who has been attuned to, whose emotional experience has been received and reflected back with the accuracy that attunement requires, develops the specific, embodied, completely real experience of being understood at the level that matters. The Good Shepherd's knowing is the ultimate attunement. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. The knowing that patterns the shepherd's knowing of the sheep is the knowing within the Trinity, the most complete, most intimate, most fully attuned knowing available. And the shepherd brings that quality of knowing to the sheep, every sheep, by name, including the one who has wandered into the open country and cannot find the way back. The practical application. In the practice of the prayer tonight, come with the emotional reality, not the theological position about how one ought to be feeling, but the actual feeling. The lostness, if the lostness is present. The weariness, if the weariness is present. The distance from the fold, if the distance is present. The Good Shepherd is the perfectly attuned shepherd. The emotional reality is what the attunement meets. The coming as the actual self is the coming to the shepherd who knows the actual self. The third concept is the research on belonging and the experience of mattering. The psychologist Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary's Need to Belong. The research on the fundamental human need for inclusion in stable, meaningful relationships has identified belonging as one of the most powerful motivators of human behavior and one of the most damaging things to be deprived of. The person who belongs, who is included, who matters to the group, whose presence is noticed and whose absence would be felt, functions differently than the person who does not belong. But the research on mattering, developed by psychologist Gordon Flett and colleagues, makes an important distinction. Belonging is the experience of being included. Mattering is the experience of being significant to another person as an individual. The experience of being noticed, relied on, important to the specific person, rather than merely to the group. A person can belong to a group and still not matter as an individual, can be present in the crowd without being the one whose name is called. The Good Shepherd provides both. The sheep belongs to the flock, and the sheep matters as the one, the specific, individual, completely particular sheep whose absence the shepherd notices and whose name the shepherd calls and whose return the shepherd carries on his shoulders. The belonging and the mattering, the flock and the name, the 99 and the one. The practical application. The person who has the belonging without the mattering, who is present in the community but who wonders whether they would be noticed if they wandered, needs to hear the parable as it was told. The shepherd left the 99 for the one. The one was noticed. The one was searched for. The one was carried home. You are not simply part of the flock. You are the one whose absence would empty the fold. The parable of the lost sheep is alive in your life right now. There is a man who has wandered a long way from where he started. He would not use the word wandered. He would say he has evolved, developed, moved on. The faith of his childhood, the specific, unquestioned, completely inherited faith of the person who grew up inside a tradition without choosing it, has been replaced across the years by a more complex relationship with the questions that the childhood faith did not ask. The doubt arrived. The complexity arrived. The specific, genuine, completely honest questions that the faith of his upbringing did not have satisfying answers to arrived. And he moved away from the fold step by step, in the specific, gradual way that the wandering happens, each step seeming like the reasonable response to the current question, the accumulation of the steps producing the distance. He is in the open country now, far from where he started, far from the fold that was home. And there is a quality to the distance that is not entirely comfortable, the specific, private, difficult-to-name sense that the open country, however honest, however intellectually necessary, is not quite where the self belongs. The fold was not adequate for the questions, and the open country is not quite home. The shepherd has left the 99. He is in the open country already, looking for the one who wandered. Not to carry him back to the childhood faith that the honest questions have made impossible to return to carry him to the faith that the questions belong inside of, the faith that is not threatened by the complexity, that has room for the doubt, that has been large enough across 2,000 years of the Church's wrestling with the hardest human questions to hold the questioner. The shepherd is not looking for the person who stops asking questions. He is looking for the person who is lost. And the being found is the being carried on the shoulders of the one who knows the name and who has been in the open country searching until the finding. There is a woman who does not believe the shepherd would come for her specifically. The 99, yes. The obviously faithful, the regular attendees, the people whose lives have the form of the close relationship with the fold. The shepherd comes for them. She is not in that category. The specific history of her life, the choices, the failures, the years of the distance that were chosen rather than wandered into, the ways in which the lostness is her own fault rather than the accumulated result of the honest questions, makes her the sheep who is not worth the searching. She has the theology of the hired hand applied to herself. The hired hand cares nothing for the sheep. She has concluded that the good shepherd cares nothing for her, or, more precisely, that the caring is for the sheep who have not done what she has done. The general care for the flock, perhaps. The specific care for the one whose lostness is her own fault, whose distance from the fold is the distance she chose. This she cannot believe is available. And Jesus told the parable into the grumbling of the Pharisees. The Pharisees were grumbling about the tax collectors and sinners, the people whose lostness was, in the Pharisees' accounting, their own fault. The people who had chosen the wrong things and whose distance from the fold was the consequence of the choosing. And Jesus said, "The shepherd leaves the 99 for the one." And there is more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. The one who repents. The one who was lost and who is found. The one whose lostness was her own fault. The shepherd is looking for her, specifically, until he finds her. And the shoulders are ready. And there is a person lying awake right now who is not sure they are lost, who is in the fold, present, accounted for, functioning correctly, and who is carrying the private question of whether any of it is personal, whether the shepherd knows their names specifically or only the flock generally, whether the care is for the individual or only for the collective, whether they would be noticed if they wandered, whether the absence would register, whether the searching would begin, whether the finding would be celebrated with the calling of the friends and neighbors and the rejoicing in heaven. This is the fear that the Good Shepherd's statement addresses most directly. He calls his own sheep by name, not the flock, each sheep by name. The shepherd, who has been with the sheep long enough to know the individual in the particular, this shepherd knows the name of the person lying awake tonight, wondering whether the knowing is personal. The knowing is personal. The name is known. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. The knowing that patterns the shepherd's knowing of this specific sheep is the knowing within the Trinity, the knowing that is the inner life of the God who is love. That knowing is applied to you, specifically, individually, by name. The 99 are fine, the fold is accounted for, and the shepherd knows your name. You are not one of many, you are the one. The formation of the sheep who knows the shepherd's voice, who has received the I know my sheep, and who has been carried home on the shoulders, and who has heard the rejoicing, is slow. The single encounter with the Good Shepherd statement does not produce the fully formed confidence of the sheep that is completely certain of its own mattering. The confidence is built across the seasons of the returning to the parable, the returning to the shepherd, the accumulation of the experiences of being known. The first thing that changes is the relationship with the lostness. The person who has received the parable, who has understood that the shepherd leaves the 99 for the one, that the searching continues until the finding, that the finding is celebrated rather than judged, finds that the lostness changes quality. The lostness that was the shame-producing evidence of the failure becomes the lostness that the shepherd is already in the open country looking for. The wandering that was the proof of the unworthiness becomes the wandering that triggers the searching. The distance from the fold that was the self-condemnation becomes the distance that the shepherd's knowledge of the name has already measured and is already crossing. The second thing that changes is the experience of being prayed for. The person who has been told they are the one, whose name has been called by the shepherd, finds the practice of the prayer gradually receiving a different quality. The prayer that was the performance of the person who is not sure the shepherd wants the real version becomes the prayer that is the coming as the actual self to the one who knows the actual self, the real condition brought to the perfect attunement, the lostness offered to the one who searches until he finds, the weariness placed on the shoulders that are already ready for the carrying. The third thing that changes is the capacity to receive the rejoicing. The person who has been the lost sheep, who has been found and carried and brought home, finds that the rejoicing is real and that it is for them. The more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner is not a theological abstraction. It is the specific, particular, completely real celebration of the one who found the name he was looking for and who calls the friends and neighbors to rejoice with him. The capacity to receive this, to believe that the finding is genuinely celebrated, that the return is genuinely welcomed, that the one who was lost is genuinely the occasion for the heavenly joy. This capacity grows as the receiving of the shepherd's knowing deepens. The fourth change is the extension of the shepherd's knowing to other sheep. The person who has been known by the Good Shepherd, who has received the calling by name, the searching until found, the carrying on the shoulders, becomes, over time, the person who knows other sheep by name, who notices when one is missing, who goes after the one in whatever form the going after takes in the ordinary life, who calls the friends and neighbors when the lost is found. The shepherd's knowing, received and practiced and returned to, forms in the sheep the capacity to know. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. The knowing runs in both directions, and the sheep who has been known begins to know. And now, let everything grow very still. Wherever the wandering has taken you, however far the open country, however long the distance from the fold, however the lostness arrived, the shepherd has left the 99. He is in the open country already, looking for the one, looking for the specific, individual, completely particular sheep whose name he knows, looking until he finds. And the finding is not the condition of the return. The return is the condition of the carrying. The found sheep does not walk back. It is placed on the shoulders and carried. You do not have to find the way home. You have to be found. Let the name be received. He calls his own sheep by name, your name, the specific, individual, completely irreplaceable name that belongs to you and to no one else. The shepherd who knows the name knows the history attached to the name, the wandering, the choosing, the accumulation of the distance, the honest questions, the specific failures, the years of the open country. He knows all of it, and he calls the name, not as the summary of the history, as the declaration of the identity. You are this sheep, the one he is looking for, the one whose absence empties the count, the one for whom the friends and neighbors will be called to rejoice. Let the carrying be received. On the shoulders, the sheep on the shepherd's shoulders is the sheep that has stopped trying to navigate and has allowed the carrying. The shoulders are ready, the weight is received. The wandering has cost something. The distance, the energy of the open country, the specific depletion of the sheep that has been far from the fold for a long time. The shepherd knows this. The carrying is not the critique of the depletion. It is the response to it. Come as you are, as depleted as you are, as far from the fold as you are. The shoulders are ready for the carrying, and the fold is ready for the returning, and the friends and neighbors are ready for the rejoicing. Let the rejoicing be anticipated. More rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. The rejoicing is not waiting for the fully restored sheep. It begins at the finding. It is already happening. The fold is ahead. The shepherd is carrying, and heaven is already calling the friends and neighbors. Rest now on the shoulders that are carrying you home. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. John 10:11. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. John 10:14-15. He joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Luke 15:5. There will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. Luke 15:7. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:1-4.